Professor Bhushan Manna is with us. It's a privilege for us to invite him for the next invited speaker. He's Associate Professor from Indian Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. He has completed his PhD degree from TFIR CAM Bangalore and completed his postdoc degrees from UNM Mexico and Harishchandra National Institute HRI. And his primary research interest includes theoretical aspects of elliptic PD and applied mathematics. Okay, so now over to you, sir. You may share your screen. Can you share your screen? I think you are unmute. Just unmute yourself, please.
Sorry. Yes. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for this nice introduction. And also, I thank the organizers. It's already we are having discussions of 3 hours, so maybe I shall try to keep this thing less technical. And yeah, let's start. Yeah. So what I shall talk about today is some part of elliptic problem. So there is a parameter which is very small involving the differential equation, and we shall take a nonlinear elliptic problem. So the problem is very simple of this type. Okay, and what we shall just a minute, please. Yeah. Okay, so this is my equation, and I have this nonlinearity f of xu, and this epsilon square is basically the perturbation parameter, and we are taking any domain omega in Rn, and we are also, if it is bounded domain or there is a part of the boundary, there we shall take both. We can take either the Dirichlet boundary condition or the Neumann boundary condition. We shall only consider these two. In fact, other boundary condition also well studied. So the weight function generally is positive. That's what so far the literature people have studied. Other kind of different kind of weight function also studied, but we shall restrict ourselves to the positive weight functions. And one important thing with this nonlinearity f is basically we want to take this nonlinearity subcritical. So that as growth condition, f as growth condition, something like mod s to the power p, where p is subcritical. 2 star minus 1, this is the critical Sobolev exponent. And as I said, the equation contains a perturbation parameter epsilon, and that basically our interest is for small epsilon, we want to study this equation. So what is our goal? We try to understand in this talk that to find a solution. So first, the existence, that whether we can find it. Of course, the which solution we are talking about, and then in the second part, mostly what is will concentrate in this particular talk, that what happens to a sequence of solution u epsilon when epsilon goes to 0. So this is where mostly we shall concentrate in this talk. Okay, with this brief introduction, I hope the equation, the setup is clear to all of you. Let us at least one example which will give you some perspective from where these kind of equations are coming. So this is a biological pattern formation model, which is coming from biology. It's a coupled system of equation which is time dependent. But when we are talking about the steady state solution, so this part vanishes, and this xi can be written as the function of u. If you see these equations, is du1 is actually your perturbation parameter epsilon, and what numerically when if you studied this equation, for what the numerical solution gives, that for this small d, okay, the solution concentrates in the sense that the solution tends to 0 at d1 approaches to 0, except at a finite number of points. So this is something which is known as the concentration phenomenon. So everywhere except a few points, everywhere the solution vanishes. I mean, not exactly vanishes, but almost vanishes. There is very less kind of presence of the solution there in the boundary. So this, and not only this, the other examples also, same sort of phenomena is observed. And when this parameter d1 goes to 0, this is quite natural that solution concentrates. And as this equation, if we look at this equation, is nonlinear because of this nonlinearity. So we may find different solutions for this equation at different energy level. And as I'll explain, what is the energy level we are talking about. So for this existence part, what we shall do, we shall write down the corresponding Euler-Lagrange equation of this equation, so that we can characterize, or we can find the solution by finding the critical point of the corresponding Euler-Lagrange equation. So the first equation which was studied maybe in this particular area is studied by this scalar field equation, which is of this form here: W is equal to 1, and your nonlinearity is exactly this type, u to the power p minus 1, what we was talking about here. P can be taken as 2 star in this case, and yeah, this 2 star this is coming, and this was studied by Berstick and Lyons in this paper. And what they found is the positive radial solution when omega is basically Rn, entire Rn. They studied this equation. They found the existence of positive radial solution, and not only that, they have also found the asymptotic when this mod x is going to infinity, what happens to the solution. So basically, maybe we don't have the explicit solution in terms of the functional formation, but we have one solution and whose asymptotic is known. And this is what is very important. This exponential decay is very important one, which helps with the other problems to solve this kind of exponential decay. Maybe I shall use this note because otherwise I'm not able to write this. This exponential decay problem. Okay, so as I said, so we want to use variational technique for at least for existence part. So this is the corresponding Euler-Lagrange formulation of this equation. And basically, if we take J prime, then this J prime U equal to 0, then this U will solve, U solves the equation. Okay, so this is the basic fact about this variational formulation. And but the thing is that when we try to find this J prime equal to 0, this energy, mostly we try to find the least energy solution where the energy kind of is minimized, with this minimizes the energy so that we shall have some kind of stability in the solution, and those are the physically relevant solution. And to find the least energy, there is a difficulty because mostly coming because these sublevel sets are not compact. And that means if we take some sequence, minimizing sequence, it might not converge. And for that, the direct method fails for this kind of energy functionals. So there are several other, methods which mathematicians has developed in decades, and these are the some of those methods. And each of the method has its own strength. These methods solve the different kind of nonlinear elliptic PDEs. So first one is the constant minimization. So constant minimization is essentially what it does. It take a constraint on this kind of function mostly. Maybe we can take this thing is equal to, let's say, 1 for those u in a particular, let's say, solo space. And then we want to minimize. So the moment we put this extra condition, so our space is now constrained. That means what we have essentially a kind of manifold with 4-dimension 1 on Hilbert space or corresponding Manna space. And then once we have a manifold of 4-dimension 1, there we shall try to solve the equation or try to find out the critical point of this particular J. And then because it has codimension 1, we can use Lagrange identity and other things to figure out that the solution which is for JU in that particular manifold is actually a solution in the for the original problem. And this is the technique what was used in this particular paper for existence actually. Next, what we are another important one is the min-max theorem, which is mountain pass theorem. So as I said, this kind of problem, basically there is an issue of compactness of this particular functional, and mountain pass theorem, what it tried to, I mean, or one of the conditions for the mountain pass theorem is kind of added compactness, which is called the Pallas-Mill condition. We shall come to that. What is the Pallas-Mill condition? Then this fountain theorem is generalization of the mountain pass theorem. Mountain pass theorem gives us a least energy solution, and there are different energy level which can be captured by this fountain theorem. And these are a lot of literature there, and what theorem actually tells us. It basically gives us sometimes helps us to find out multiplicity of solution. Okay, and then even this concentration compactness phenomena, when this kind of result fails, sometimes this and compensated compactness and the this sort of technique works. And in the result, what we are going to discuss today, we shall use this Lyapunov with finite dimension reduction. So this is also a very useful technique, I would say, and it can solve a lot of problem using this technique. And also, this technique has a advantage that it can give us multiplicity result also. And because we have a lot of choice, different choices under which we can produce a solution under this particular technique. Okay, so this is a kind of literature survey. What at least this techniques, if we know, we can handle a huge class of semilinear elliptic problem. Okay. So at least let us state the mountain pass theorem so that we shall, especially the students, shall have some idea what is happening there. So, as I said, there is a the mountain pass theorem assumes some kind of added compactness, and that is this Pallas-Mill condition. So it says that basically, if I have a sequence for which the functional is bounded, or it is converging to some point, and at the same time, the derivative is going to 0. Okay, then that sequence has a convergent subsequence. Okay, so that kind of existence of a convergent subsequence is a very sort of strong assumption, I would say, and which will give us the existence in some sense using this mountain pass theorem. Okay, so for this particular theorem, this Pallas-Mill condition is very important, and the another important fact is that this is called the Pallas-Mill the mountain pass geometry. So basically, what it says is that I mean the functional. If we go back to this functional also have certain kind of geometry. If we draw this functional in, let's say, 2 dimension, okay, this functional, of course, we are working in infinite dimensional spaces, but if we try to draw it in 2 dimension, the geometry of this functional is something like this. Okay, so it increases and then decreases to infinity in both ways. Okay, so basically, this is the kind of is a valley, and if you want to go out to the valley, you have to from here in this mountain pass theorem, what we try to capture is not the minimizer, because most of the time the minimizer gives you the 0 solution. So what we are trying to capture is the min-max. Min-max in the sense, in this direction it is increasing, but if you go in this direction, it is the minimum of this direction what you are trying to capture. Okay? And that is the min-max level, and the mountain pass solutions are always the min-max solution, kind of min-max solution. It's a saddle point, kind of saddle points of that particular image. Okay? And this is your, as I said, is the characterization of the corresponding energy is given by the min-max, and this is your critical energy what we are getting using the mountain pass theorem. And when we talk about the min-max theorem, we always take a path, the path what we was drawing here. So we start from the origin, we draw a path, so we have to climb a mountain, And that is where the min-max comes into the picture. If I go to the path, this is the path where we are talking. So this is the idea of the mountain pass theorem. So you have a mountain pass geometry, you have palacemal condition, then your existence of this min-max critical level is guaranteed using this theorem. So this theorem also helps us to solve a class of semilinear elliptic problem. In fact, also yeah, quasi-linear also in some time. And with this brief introduction about the existence result, let us come to the main part, what we are going to discuss today. So as our equation is a perturbation parameter involved there. So what we are trying to see this particular question. What happens to U epsilon, a sequence of solution when epsilon goes to 0? So as numerically, when people studied, they see that solution gives us spike length. So what exactly is spike length? So suppose I'm in dimension 2, and this is my domain omega, and here I have a solution U epsilon. Okay, so if something looks like, let's say, like this, okay, in this domain. So suppose this is your at epsilon equal to 1. Now the moment I go to the next one, let's say I take a smaller epsilon, u half. So what happens is that this one something becomes like this. And then again, if I take let's say u1 by, let's say, 10, it becomes more and more steeper. So what is happening here? If I say, I mean, in a heuristic way, that this is the support of my u1, and this is the support of my u2, and support of my u10. So when this particular parameter is going to 0, this support is shrinking. So initially our support was this of the solution, and in the next step maybe support is this, third step the support is, and the solution lives only in the support at that particular level. And because this support is shrinking, so apart from this point, the everywhere solution is kind of vanishing. So this is the concentration phenomena. When people studied numerically, it is observed. And it is not only the fact that there is only one point where solution concentrates. It might happen that there are many other points where the solution concentrates. So this is the numerical result which people have observed. So we shall try to theoretically understand this phenomena in this talk and why this is happening. What is the reason behind this? Okay. So people have both studied the Dirichlet case and the Neumann case, and there are a very interesting sort of concentration profile people observe. Suppose we have two domains, like this is for Dirichlet and this is for Neumann. Then if we talk about the single point concentrating solution, that is the solution which concentrates only one point, then for the Dirichlet case, it happens at the furthest distance from the boundary. The point which is the distance from the boundary, for which the distance from the boundary is the maximum one. And the moment we change this to Neumann case, that is your boundary derivative is 0, the concentration happens on the boundary. So these are the two very different sort of phenomena which people observe. And this is because of the reason that as I said, the mountain bus geometry gives us some kind of least energy solution. And for the Dirichlet case, the energy is kind of 1, the full energy. I will explain what I'm trying to say by full energy. And Neumann case, the energy becomes half, basically. And that is the reason when here the solution is there, it spreads over all, I mean, around the point. But for the Neumann case, it can only spread over half of the domain. Other part is not there. And this is somehow the reason, I mean, this is intuitively the reason why the energy becomes half here. So this is the difference between Dirichlet and Neumann case. So this is the furthest distance from the boundary. And the next Neumann problem is concentration happens on the boundary, basically. So these are the two very interesting sort of phenomena. It's a long time in some remarkable papers they have observed. So this is the result for the Dirichlet case. This, in fact, this is the pioneering result what we have for the Dirichlet case. So if we look at this result, what we see is that, so for mountain bus solution U epsilon, because this is a least energy solution, it can have at most one local minimum. This is first thing, where they have used the mountain bus theorem. As I said, we explained this theorem here. So in this paper, they used the mountain bus theorem to get the solution. And because it's a least energy solution, it makes the solution concentrate at a single point. Okay, exactly 1 point P epsilon in omega. Moreover, if we see this condition, this is going to 0 in C1 loop. So there is a strong convergence which is happening outside that particular point, P epsilon. And as you said, this is a Dirichlet problem. So dP epsilon del omega going to maximum of P, which is distance from the boundary. So this is the result which is proved in this couple of papers. So the idea is of this proof is the first existence. They have used the mountain bus theorem. They got the least energy solution, and then this is the fundamental concept of this most of the concentration phenomena, that every solution which concentrate, there corresponds equation like this, and this will give us the concentration profile. So when I talk about that something which is concentrating like this is nothing but this solution is coming from here in Rn, and then what we do some scaling. You see here if we see this is the scaling involved there, and this, if we use this scaling, this kind of, because yeah, we shall come to that, solution of this problem decays exponentially, radial solution, and because of that, the support when you give this kind of scaling is some kind of after if epsilon is very small, is confined inside this particular epsilon. Of course, we have to use some cutoff function, but that will not do much difference because of the exponential decay. Okay, so if we do the scaling like this, U epsilon of epsilon y plus P epsilon, so this is the point of concentration, then this scale function will converge to this Uy, and U will satisfy this equation in Rn. So this is known in the literature as the corresponding entire problem. So this plays a crucial role, and the bubble or the concentration profile depends upon this particular equation only. So most of the problem where people study the concentration profile, there always exists such kind of equation. So finding out this equation which gives us the concentration profile is very important for this kind of problem. So once we find the appropriate the entire problem, the half of our work is done, because we know what is the corresponding approximate solution for this. And then once we got this, we can easily figure out a particular or approximate value of this energy. Sorry. And that value, if we look closely, this is the energy of this particular equation. And then this constant depends upon this equation in some sense. It's a technical. I'm not going to go to the detail. And the location of the concentration is basically given by this. And why the location is given by this? If we see this this one here, you see this one, psi epsilon P epsilon is going to 2 distance of this one. And because we are talking about the least energy solution, so the energy will be least once this quantity is the biggest, right? And that gives us that this quantity has to be biggest. That is the distance of the point where this P epsilon converges. Okay, that has to be at the greatest distance from the boundary. So this is their ideal. They have proved it. Also, I'll just state the corresponding Neumann case. So when they studied, they also studied the Neumann case, same mathematicians, and they also studied the Neumann case. Also, they studied via the mountain bus theorem, and then this is the same result they have got. The mountain bus solution will have at most one local maximum point, And the remarkable thing what is happening here is that P epsilon is on the boundary now. And why this is on the boundary is there's a very interesting thing happening here. Instead of what they figure out that this entire problem, instead of Rn, it is actually Rn plus. And you see the energy when you are calculating for this in Rn, and energy when you are calculating for Rn plus, it becomes half. And that force some way to the position of P epsilon on the boundary. That is the fundamental idea that which forces this this point of concentration on the boundary. And then in the next another paper, I think one of this one, they have not only put that this is on the boundary, they have also characterized that where exactly the concentration can happen. This is on the mean curvature of the boundary where the concentration is happening. And this also comes from the this kind of energy estimate. Here I didn't write the energy estimate. If we do, if they have done similar kind of energy estimate for the Neumann case also, and this particular parameter gamma, it depends on the mean curvature on the boundary, along with this solution of the entire problem. And there they that's how they got the solution. The concentration point has to be at the point where the mean curvature is the maximum. Okay. So as I said, this equation is nonlinear because we have the right hand side is a nonlinear this thing. Okay. We are dealing with that, so we can expect that there are different energy level, and at each energy level we have one more solution. And then the natural question comes that apart from this point concentrating solution, can we have other kind of solution? Here they have started just single point because mountain bus solution will give us the single point concentration, but then the natural question comes that whether we can find some solution which doesn't concentrate on one point, maybe more than one point, or maybe on a subset. Is it possible? And there are a lot of results which came up after that. These celebrated papers. One of those is given by Dancer and Yan, and they have used this Lyapunov-Smith reduction, finite dimensional reduction method, which we stated or mentioned earlier. Using this method, what they have proved, I mean, if you give me any k number of points in the domain, I can produce a solution which concentrates on those k points. The idea is basically one put this copy of this particular function via this scaling factor at those particular point, and then use this technique, finite dimensional reduction, to prove that such solution actually exists, which concentrate on this particular points. Okay. So this we shall come to that maybe briefly. And then as I said, these are all kind of solutions which concentrate a point. And this remarkable paper, what they did actually, they took a symmetric domain like sphere, and they studied the radial solution. So the moment one studies the radial solution, let's say in Rn, it becomes a ODE in on some domain, and domain in R. And once we have concentration, let's say this is my domain, reduced domain in R. Suppose I have found a concentrating point here. So we see that this point, when we go back to this particular domain, it corresponds to a sphere. Okay. And that's how when in this paper they was studying the radial solution, and the byproduct what they have got Sn-1 concentrating solution for the same kind of equation. Okay. And in the same paper, they actually conjectured that this is the conjecture that it is not only if we are in Rn, we are getting if we are in Rn, we are getting Sn-1, that in n-1 dimensional concentration. Okay. So in the same paper, they conjectured that in fact there are solutions which can concentrate on subsets of any dimension which is less than n-1. Okay. So many sort of dimensions still left. There are few dimensions have, I mean, we know so far the result of this particular conjecture. So one of these results we are going to discuss here. Before that, these are the some important sort of answers for this particular conjecture which is given. In this paper, they have studied the S1 concentrating solution, that is solution which are concentrating on circle S1. And here also it is a two-dimensional manifold, some kind of torus. This S1 cross 3/4 torus, the solution which is concentrating on this 3/4 torus, they have also 3/4. Okay. The main idea of this, all this type of higher dimensional concentration is the use of symmetry. So, I mean, directly proving the higher dimensional concentration is very difficult unless we are talking about some symmetry. So, our domain is symmetric, and there is a symmetry also, the corresponding function which has is symmetric. And in that setup only we can talk about this kind of concentration phenomenon. Why I am talking about the symmetry, it will be clear. Okay. So this conjecture for R4 is complete because the zero-dimensional concentration are just the point concentration which we have discussed. S3 concentration is the that result radial. Okay, and the S1 is S1 and S2. This is one-dimensional. This is two-dimensional. These two references. This is one-dimensional concentration. This is two-dimensional concentration. So for R4, we have results. We have solutions which concentrate on dimension 0, dimension 1, dimension 2, and dimension 3. So this is completely solved. But for 3 dimension, 0 and 2 is known for the same reason. And what we found out recently that we figure out a S1 concentrating solution in dimension 3. This is the missing dimension, but it was still open until now. Recently we have. So today we are going to give some idea about how we have got this. So this is a slightly geometric concept what we have used because what we have taken this as the domain is annulus. So this is this kind of domain. Okay, the origin is outside of the domain and it has a spherical symmetry. And this has added this thing because this we can be written as let's say AB cross Sn minus 1. Right, something like this, and you know that we can have this, we can use this symmetry to produce this kind of symmetric concentration. So there are already existing some sort of technique which can produce this kind of fibers. So this is S1 action on S2n plus 1, which gives us CPn. S3 action on S4n plus 3, which gives us the this is yeah. What is the name? And S7, which is this is actually 4n dimensional. This is 2n dimensional manifold. This 4n dimensional manifold, and this is the octonionic spaces. This S7 acting on S15 and gives this OP1. And these are there are special cases of this, and the special cases is that the CP1 is S2, HP1 is S4, and OP1 is S8. Okay. So these special cases we can use to produce this S3. S1, S3, and S7 concentration, which are basically the Hopf fibers. And we shall discuss one concrete example, which at least give us the Hopf fibers. Okay. So, as I said, maybe here I can write this thing. So, at least for this one, S2, how it is coming. So if I take the, which is basically can be I mean annulus, it can be written 0 to infinity cross S3, something like this. Okay, and in polar coordinate system, the coordinates comes like this: r cos theta cos psi, r cos theta sin psi, r sin theta, maybe I can put psi 1, cos psi 2, r cos theta sin psi 2. Okay, so what is this Hopf fibration? What we shall do, we shall actually introduce one, let's say, another parameter, and we shall take this or restrict our space U, which is invariant under this tau action. So what do we mean by invariant under this tau xn? Suppose u is a function on R4, so we can write R theta psi 1 psi 2, and then what we are imposing on this u, the condition this is equal to u of, this is very important to understand, theta psi 1 plus tau psi 2 plus tau for all tau in 0 to 2 pi. So you see, this is kind of invariant under this action, and this is basically the S1 action, because this tau belongs to 0 to 2 pi. Once we incorporate this here, psi 1 plus tau and psi 2 plus tau, that is the S1 action we are talking about. And the most important thing, what is happening here, so the moment we are doing this kind of vibration, so we are reducing one dimension, because earlier we was in 0 to infinity to S3. Now we are in maybe some other this thing, because we are in annular domain. So there's some scaling will come. It is AB to S3, some kind of thing. And then we are coming to some A1, B1 to S2, cross S2, which is basically dimension 3. Okay. And because of that, the operator, the Laplace operator, you satisfy, if you satisfy some equation, then the equation will also change. And this is how the equation is changing under the Hoffman. If I do that kind of take that kind of change of variable, or if I act the S1 on this particular system using that polar coordinate, what you can explicitly calculate that if we define V of, let's say, R theta, let's say psi is, which is equal to U of R theta. Maybe psi we can take like psi 1 minus psi 2, 0. And we can write this because this is invariant under this tau x, and that's why we can write this, and we can define this. Then this the original equation will transform to this equation. And you see, earlier there was no weight, but here we are having some weight function. And the important thing is that what is important to understand, if we can figure out that there a solution concentrate on a particular point, because of the same reason, the corresponding solution here will concentrate on S1. Why? Because every point in this particular domain, the pre-image of that particular point is S1 in this particular domain. Okay, so this is the basic idea of our proof. And now we shall quickly just try to solve our equation. So this is our equation, and here we are bringing the finite dimensional reduction. So how much time I have?
So yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Will it be possible to wind up in coming 10 minutes?
10 minutes should be sufficient. I mean, this is the technical part. I don't want to go anyway. So what we did, we here, because we are in R4, so there are two sort of reduction what we are doing. So from R4, we are going to R2, and then we are lifting this problem in R3. Okay, we shall come to that. Why this helps us to find a solution. So R4, when we talk about this S1 cross S1 orbit solution, so what we are looking at, we are looking at this kind of biharmonic solution here. So not biharmonic, biradial solution. Okay. So U of xy, this is 2 dimension, this is 2 dimension. Now it is reduced to, this is dimension 1, this is dimension 1. So this is reduced to 2 variable. So if I go back, so we first reduce this R2. So any solution which concentrate at a point here will give us a solution which concentrate on S1 cross S1. And then if we go to using this Hopf vibration, so if we use this in the reduced problem, which is actually our problem in R3, what we started with, under this Hopf map, one S1 will be killed, and this S1 concentration solution we shall get for this R3. So this is basically the fundamental idea of this particular work. Okay. So now we are trying to find a biradial solution for this particular problem. So the moment we try to find the bi-radial solution, now our domain becomes, this is subset of R2. And the equation transforms to this, something like this, because we are talking about bi-radial solution. So this extra derivatives comes from the picture in the equation. So the equation takes a different shape, slightly complicated one, but at least we can handle it because we have this. This is very important. We have this Euler-Lagrange formulation for this particular equation. There are a few technical issues with coming up because the original problem we was dealing with Dirichlet boundary condition. After this transformation, our domain, which was annular domain originally, okay, has become this particular domain. And then not only that, we have added this Neumann boundary condition, which because of this kind of restriction. So in one part we have Dirichlet, another part we have Neumann, but this doesn't matter much because we are actually looking for solution which concentrate inside the domain, not on the boundary. If it concentrates near the boundary, then this could have been a problem. But somehow we could figure out that for this particular problem, the concentration is happening inside the boundary. That's why this boundary condition doesn't play much role. Okay, we could avoid this issue. And then this is the restricted space because we have this mixed boundary. Some boundary is 0 and some boundary is the derivative is 0. And this is our the corresponding equivalent norm which we are working with. And as I said, every problem which is a concentration type has a corresponding limit problem or entire problem. So we have figured out that our entire problem is this. And it is not only important to figure out what is the entire problem, but also we need to know what is the property of the solution. Fortunately, for this problem, we have the same property, which this solution decays exponentially. They are radial and all these things we have. We can use that. And then what we did, we maybe I should go to this thing. We define the split of our. This is what we took the space where we want to work. And then we have splitted the space into E epsilon P and E epsilon P perpendicular. Okay, so this is the infinite dimensional space. And if we see the E epsilon P perpendicular, this is nothing but this the space spanned by this one. And what are those? Those are basically coming from this projection map. Because once we are having this in R2, we cannot use this function directly because our domain is not R2, even we do the scaling. So we need to bring down this this solution to the domain where we are working, and that's why we need to take this projection. There are different ways. One can take this projection of this type, or we can multiply by cutoff function. That is also what. But we work with this projection, and in that case, it worked well because we could calculate all this error estimate for this projection. These are very technical part, and it will take time to explain all these things. I'm not going to there. What is important here is that this is my, formulation to solve the finite dimensional problem. So what exactly happens is that if I want to find a critical point of the corresponding energy, which is this one, this energy in a particular space, let's say this one, this is my space. What I have done, I have split my space into two parts. One is this E epsilon P, another is E epsilon P perpendicular. And I see that E epsilon P perpendicular is a finite dimensional space because there are only finitely many vectors which is generating this space. And that particular space also is kind of defined the moment we have this point P. So it is now it boils down to the fact that if I want to find out the critical point of my energy, so I have to find if I restrict the energy in this space, I should find a critical point here. If I restrict my function to this space perpendicular this which is finite dimensional, there also we have to find the solution. So finding solution here is a bit tricky and is very technical. But to find the solution here, we need to figure out a domain which is basically coming here, subdomain of our original domain. This is very important. And that comes from the corresponding energy. If we have to calculate the energy, and looking at the energy, we have to decide that what should be my domain, this, so that my when I restrict my energy to the finite dimensional case, it will produce me a solution. This is very important for each Lyapunov-Smith reduction method. So being said that, maybe we can go to the next. Oops. Yeah. So now my energy functional takes this form. Okay. And if we see this, this is my energy which is coming from this projection. Okay. And this entire thing. And then if I calculate carefully, these are constant. You see, this energy is now becoming a function of only P and D1, this distance. Okay. And if we go to the next, as I said, we have this. If we want to find the critical point of this particular thing, we have to solve this equation both in E epsilon P, E epsilon perpendicular. This is infinite dimensional space. This is the finite dimensional complement. And here to prove this, as I said, this is very technical, and I'm not at all going there. So once the result what we generally get for every P in the domain, we can find a unique solution for this particular problem. That is the result we have proved. So once we have proved that, it boils down to solve this problem on the finite dimension, which is actually now a function of P. So the problem, the reduced problem, looks like this. This is a finite dimensional problem. In fact, this is a problem in R, yes, Rn, whatever dimension we are looking about. And then the for few problems, it might be very difficult to tackle this finite dimensional problem, because we see that this is a very weird looking sort of, and this particular dependence of this D and W is not known. But somehow we was lucky that we can easily, we have this polar coordinate representation, so we can easily decouple them to the radial and the corresponding the rotational part, okay, which will give us this kind of expression. And looking at this kind of expression, if we use some kind of min-max argument, we can get the solution, provided our distance from this P to D is greater than K epsilon ln epsilon. As I said, this will give us the idea of what should be the domain. In fact, this gave the idea that this should be the domain. Only then we can solve this problem in this lambda epsilon. Okay. So this way we solve the equation both this for this one, and finally we solve this one. And as I said in previous slide, so we solved for this solution which is concentrating on S1 cross S1 here. Then we use Hopf vibration to get a S1 concentrating solution. So this is the result we have got recently. Okay. So these are a few important papers where there are a lot of literature. I mean, it is never ending, but there are a few which are very helpful. Okay. And thank you for your questions. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bhakti. Is there any questions from the audience side?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. So I just had maybe a couple of quick questions. So firstly, can you go back to the slide where you were talking about the U epsilon asymptotic behavior, I think, as epsilon goes to 0, where it was like functional of capital U and plus an exponential of a psi. If I remember, it was, yeah, this one. So I didn't quite understand. So what is this psi?
This one is this has functional relationship. This is the psi function of P epsilon, the point where it is concentrated.
Okay. And so Q
and
is
it is also we can figure out when epsilon goes to 0 what happens to this, and this is very important.
Okay, I see.
And that's why they can say that okay, it has to be the farthest from the boundary.
Okay. And then what is Q?
Q is
Capital
the point
Q.
where this P epsilon converges.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
I mean, for each epsilon, you shall get a point of concentration. So that point is moving around, right? So maybe it will not converge because I am taking a bounded domain. At least up to a subsequence, it will converge.
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, so one more question I wanted to ask is, so the equations that you get for this capital U in this limit, is there any, so is it always of this form, like U to the power P
No,
minus
that's what
U?
I said. No. So it depends upon, see, once you, there is a sort of idea, how do you calculate this? Maybe I can explain here. So the moment you do scaling, no, I mean, you just, let's say you capital U epsilon equal to U of U small u epsilon of epsilon y plus p epsilon.
Yeah.
Or let us fix a point Q. Then if you use this directly, you calculate this thing, then that equation, now this y can be very large, right? Even the for epsilon very small, this omega epsilon become very large, and depending upon the concentration or depending upon the Dirichlet or Neumann, at least we have some idea where it will converge, where it will concentrate. Depending on the bound, if it is Neumann, mostly it will concentrate on the boundary, so we shall have Rn plus. If it is Dirichlet, it will entire Rn is there. Okay. So now once you just heuristically, if you replace this equation, I mean, if you calculate the corresponding equation for this U epsilon, okay, then you shall have a transformed equation. And you know this U epsilon is now your kind of satisfies the problem in entire Rn and for very small epsilon. Okay, and you see that once you make this change, this epsilon vanishes here. This epsilon will be no more because of this Laplacian. When you calculate this epsilon will be vanished. So your this operator is not getting I mean changed. Maybe some epsilon here and there it can come some power, and then it will give you the idea. If I take epsilon go to 0, suppose epsilon is here and epsilon is not here. So that means if U is some sort of bound, we can figure out, and W is as well bounded. This term is vanishing. This term will not be there in the limit case. So what is your limit problem? Limit problem is this equal to this.
Okay.
Okay.
And so
this
smaller
can
be anything.
Yeah. Am I clear?
Yeah.
On this thing. Yeah.
Okay, and okay, so final question. So can we do the reverse in the sense that, let's say that, can I find this singularly perturbed elliptic equation starting from some solution where I know that there is a concentrated solution?
So you have some sort of phenomena, concentration phenomena, and you want to figure out what is the corresponding differential equation, is it?
Yeah. So let's say that I have like some differential equation for the U for some U, where I know that there is some concentration phenomena. So I guess, yeah. So instead of concentration, can you like go the other way around and think about like diffusion type equation that you may be able to get from that?
No, I have not seen that so far, that kind of thing. Maybe the literature I am working with that doesn't come at all.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I think we are running a little bit out of the time. So if there are any quick question, we can take 1 or 2 minutes. Is there any question from the audience side?
Bhakti, this is Harsha. Just a quick question, man. So you mentioned one result that if you are given finitely many points, you can make the concentrations appear at those. You mentioned one result. So is that particular for W being a constant, or W can be any function which is positive?
So generally, concentration happens because we are. If we look at the mountain per solution, then yes, there are results which actually concentrate on the minima of this one, Wx.
Okay.
And if it is, then it will probably force. I'm not sure. It will force that those point has to have something to do with this critical point of this Wx.
Now the reason I ask is,
Yes.
in this context, like if W is an oscillating function, like in homogenization theory, and if it's oscillating with period epsilon, let's say, then it will have too many minima, and that is also varying with epsilon.
Yes.
Have people tried to answer such questions in this context? Singular perturbation in the highest order term with oscillations in this potential.
Okay. So I have seen the result where they have proved only this. Maybe I have to dig out. I mean, right now I will not be able to.
Okay. If
because you are saying that
yes,
you are saying that if the oscillation is too many, what happens to them? Right?
Exactly.
Okay. No, I mean they are also. It is a added difficulty in this particular system. But is it a perturbed type, or it is just the minus Laplace u plus Wxu equal to f, where W has too many oscillation?
No. You have your perturbation.
So perturbation is already there, and on the
Square.
top of that, you have this oscillation.
And top of that, if your potential is also having oscillations of period epsilon,
okay.
how the oscillations, that frequency and this perturbation interacts? That's, I mean, have you come across any such thing?
No, I have not. I have to see.
Okay.
So I'll be very happy. You can send me at least one note or something. I shall just look at it. Maybe
Sure. I mean, I have seen the one which you mentioned, where there is no perturbation on the Laplacian, just the potential oscillates. Yeah, I can send you references on that. Then it's essentially marrying the two.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it will not be very easy to handle, because if it has too many, because there are a lot of estimate on W which matters for this calculation, And each of those
some gradient estimate.
Yes. A lot of estimate. That's why the reason we are taking W is even it cannot touch 0. It has to be positive, and it is very useful.
Okay. Very nice talk, Bhakti. Thank you.
Maybe recently somebody has done. Please send me this thing. I'm also very interested.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for this nice presentation. It was very informative and very knowledgeable for us. Thank you so much. So